Hey guys, it's Connor here of Gamemode Failure, and I'm going to be doing something different today. I've not done before, and I've been suggested by one of you YouTubers, and it's to do game reviews. And this is not necessarily a review as much as a comparison. Well, it is a comparison, because what I've heard a lot of is the argument between WoW and Guild Wars 2, and yeah, that is a very kind of, I don't know. In terms of explaining that argument, there's no real reasoning behind it except from they're just rival MMOs. Um, in my opinion, I've played both. I played WoW for 5 years, and I've come played Guild Wars 2 recently. I left WoW due to just expansion reasons, and certain patches like just didn't motivate me to play anymore. Um, so if you don't want to watch the video, it's not the most important thing. You're not going to be missing out. I'm just if my computer can handle it, I'll be doing some world v world. But it's mainly about just the audio for this. So I'm just going to go into it now, and what I'm going to talk about first is the beginnings. And what I mean by the beginnings is those first few levels when you play it. Like in WoW, for example, it'd be 1 to 7, and Guild Wars 2, it's different. I think Guild Wars 2 is only for one level, really. Maybe the second level, because it gets you out into the world as well. But I'll start with WoW. With WoW, you get taught basically all the skills you need for questing. It teaches you, it gives you lots of tips. They always come up, and it's about how to your inventory, what different things to do, and as you unlock different things when you level, like when you unlock Dungeon Finder, it tells you what it is and how to use it and what it does basically. Then you've got your beginning quests, and those quests teach you the things that you will use in later quests, like gathering, your slaying quests. They explain to you about, they give you target dummies to fight, which when I started they didn't do. WoW has definitely improved on its beginning zones, like on its start zones drastically. I believe it was in Cata they really changed them up and made them a lot better. I wasn't really sure in Mr. Pandaria, I didn't play much. So that's the WoW's one. It's a very, very player friendly one for new players. Guild Wars 2 on the other hand, it is very different in the way they do it. It's more of a beginning of your story. It's basically like I'll take the human example. You save the town. And that's all it is. Like, it doesn't really teach you much about, well, it doesn't really teach you anything about it. You just kind of go in it face first, and you kind of figure bits out. It gives you some tips, explains a few things, which is helpful. It really is. But I think the most important stuff you learn, and what new players need before they can actually get anything done, is just after that. It's a little guy who will say, okay, yeah, go over here and do this heart, because you get experience and rewards for doing these hearts. And he's like, oh yeah, and feel free to go around and do the quests as you please, which is Guild Wars 2's kind of way of questing. I'm guessing we're just going to roll into questing with this. In WoW, questing is very straightforward. It's very, it is a lot of backtracking in my opinion. You kind of going back to what you've just done. You got to go to a guy, he gives you stuff to kill or stuff to get, and you come back to him. Sometimes it will take you to other areas, but generally they're very kind of in one area, and that I can find really repetitive and boring. But it is good for questing out, when you're smashing out a ton of quests really quick, because you can do them all. I'm gonna get killed here. You can do them all and just go and hand them all in once, get your massive XP, and it's really easy. The problem with that is that it feels quite slow. But then again, compared to Guild Wars 2 kind of questing, Guild Wars 2 has two kind of modes of questing, I guess. You've got your sorry. You've got your personal story thing, which is it kind of each part you do increases in levels, so it's your story, and you can change that depending on what you choose when you're making a character, and there's so many different ways that can happen. Carrying on from that, they have So you do that as you're going through, which is, you know, the story fighting against Zaitan and his minions. Um, but then you've also got your hearts in every zone, and you've got all these different things like points of interest and all that, and you get a reward when you complete a full zone. And the difference really in questing between the two games is that Guild Wars 2 really, really strongly promotes exploration. They want you to explore the world. That will get you a lot more XP than doing dungeons. And I'll go into dungeons later on, but it's what they want. That's their questing style they want. Because you can't go through and just do your storyline, because it will out-level you and you won't be able to do it. You'll be too low level, you won't be geared enough. Which is a good strategy on questing, because it always means you have something to do. With WoW, I found myself getting very lost. One major thing I love in Guild Wars 2, which I don't think is being biased, it's what I personally think here is that Guild Wars 2, as they use the hearts, your progression on a heart is saved. So, you know, say you get bored, you go somewhere else, you start doing something, you know, that's fine. That progression is saved there, but you don't have a quest log or anything. It's like, when I was playing WoW, I zone hopped quite a lot because I get bored quickly. But when you're, if you try and do that in Guild Wars 2, that's fine, because you don't have a quest log. You'd quickly run out of space in your quest log in WoW, which was a problem for me quite a lot, because I kept old quests to remember where I was in a zone, and I think, well, quite a few people who I played with also did that, and that's just a common thing really. And it's kind of, that's just the way it works really. um, Hard to kind of put it any other way, but that's the best I can explain that. Moving on from that, I'm just going to talk about combat. This is going to be very short combat. The combat in Guild Wars 2, I'll start with that. It's very different. You have a lot less buttons, you can see. You do have choices. You have, like, you know, your skill buttons and such, which are interchangeable, but you'll only have 10 buttons to press on your action bar at one time. Very, very different to WoW. WoW, I had like 30 something buttons I could have pressed, all doing actions and stuff, but I found that was a bit too overwhelming, and you don't need that many. But it is nice it's very different how they've chosen to go about it, because there's a lot different, all your different weapon combinations in Guild Wars can give you different attacks, while in WoW you use, you know, you get standardized kind of attacks, and it is, you know, your attacks don't change. You have attacks for that class, and attacks that can be used with that weapon, and attacks that can't be used with that weapon. You know, it's very kind of simple and straightforward, which is good. Makes it a lot easier and gives you a lot more options on what to do. Because that is one problem here with Guild Wars 2. You don't have, you only have 5 actual combat moves. That is really limiting to your option on what to do, which also means you have to use more skill. Like, you have to think about what you're doing. Also, I found this is a major thing, because I'm lazy, I love it. You don't have to target to fight in Guild Wars 2. It will hit whatever you're facing. So I can be, say, targeting a guy who's behind a guy. I will hit the guy in front because he's in my way. And with WoW, that's very different. You would hit who you were targeting, and you had to target them. I like this difference, I really do, simply because it's a lot less work, and it gives it a bit more realism. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm just slicing through this guy's head just so I can hit the stomach of the guy behind him. You know, it is a lot more realism, and it makes it a bit more interesting. What is there? In WoW, most people know the WoW combat system. I find it very kind of button mashy. The only way to explain it, you're pressing a button and you don't doing much. And as a warrior, I played a warrior tank. A lot of my attacks had the same animation. It was just me spinning in spot or hitting my shield. That was it. That was a major thing. Guild Wars 2 here, each attack has different animation. Like, I mean, yes, your auto attack has 3 different animations because it's 3 different attacks really. It's combos, but each one you can tell what attack you're doing by what button you press, and just by the way it looks at it. It's very kind of finely tuned that way. They've kind of really gone to detail for that, which I think is really good. It definitely adds something to the game. What's next? What should be next? Leveling. Leveling is a good thing to talk about. Leveling is very strange in Guild Wars 2. I always find it a bit odd, especially compared to WoW. WoW is a very kind of simple, almost as it should be. The higher level you get, the harder it is to level. That's basically it. For me playing Guild Wars 2, I found the higher level I got, the easier it was. That's just because the you get the same percentage rewards from completing zones and stuff, and that started to take huge chunks out of your out of leveling. It made it so much easier, which is good and bad because it does give you quite a bit of just simple stuff to do. And Guild Wars 2, I found I leveled a lot slower at the beginning, which is what drew me away from the game when I started. It didn't draw me in all quickly. When I started playing, I got to level 7 and I stopped because, one, I was playing on my own and it's never as interesting, but I found it better just to, I preferred quicker leveling at the bottom like it is in WoW, while it was really strange doing in Guild Wars 2 having really slow levelings. I thought that was going to drag on and it seemed quite demotivating. In WoW, it's nice to have the quick leveling at the beginning. But yeah, that's all I can really say about leveling. It's not a massive thing you can talk about. It's just, it is how it is. Aesthetics of the game. This is both how the world looks and how the characters look. And unarguably, I have to say, I think Guild Wars 2, their graphics are so much nicer. Everything looks so much nicer. And I put that down to the ratios. Buildings, trees, just stuff is really well ratioed to your character, because when you go into a capital city, you feel like you're in a capital city. Things are towering over you. In WoW, when I went into Stormwind and such, I was like almost the height of a building, and it kind of lost a bit of stuff. It kind of lost a bit because you didn't feel as like kind of overwhelmed by it all. Although WoW has definitely kind of, if I compare them like older WoW to Guild Wars 2 now, because Guild Wars 2 is quite very fresh, it's very beginningy. Graphics are very different. Original WoW was very plain, and it was plain for quite a while. I have to say, Burning Crusade, badass looking gear, best looking gear there is. That looked awesome, but then they kind of lost it a bit. Not Cataclysm. Well, yeah, Cataclysm and most of Lich King weren't that interesting, and they're getting a lot better with how the world look now. They're getting better with the armor and the detail in it. It's a lot more detailed now, and I like what they're doing with transmogrification. They brought in transmogs, which is something that the players love. They wanted for ages because it gives them customability. They can make themselves like just wear their favorite piece of armor. Granted, they had to go farm it, but you got to earn it in some way. That's different to Guild Wars 2, like quite different, because Guild Wars 2 is my favorite thing I've ever found. It has armor dyes, and if you don't understand what armor dyes are, it's really, really simple. You can dye your armor different colors and different parts of your armor different. That is huge for customability and making you kind of stand out how you want to. You can make yourself look as crazy or as badass as you want, and it'll make you different to just the other people, and that is huge for so many players, because they don't want to look like the other dude. Because for quite a while now, all the warrior tanks would be wearing the same stuff, all the priest healers, all that kind of stuff. They'll be wearing the same stuff, and it'd be really boring. You would feel like you're just one of those other guys, you're another one of that class. Nothing really different. Which kind of, it didn't make, you kind of got the gear and you didn't feel any different. You felt like, you only based yourself against other people by comparing your gear, and it was just quite boring. And it made PvP very easy, because you could see who was geared and who wasn't, and you'd go for the ungeared guy and smash his face in. But yeah, I find that a lot more details gone into Guild Wars 2's world. I just like that the end of biomes, like you've got a snow biome and stuff, it's not just a line that's cut it off, it blends in. There's difference, it's not just kind of, oh yeah, now you're in grass, and this is the border of where grass, snow, and lava all meets, so here's logic and apply it. It has a bit more realism to it. But I'm going to stop talking about aesthetics now, because I could go on for ages about that, and you probably don't want that. Also, last thing I would say, big shiny weapons. You can't go wrong with. Um, Next is Endgame. Now, Endgame for both, not gonna lie, I find it a bit boring. Um, just because Guild Wars 2, I kind of feel quite lost in what to do, as in like, oh, well now I'm like max level, what do I do? There's not a whole lot you can do, really. You can PvP or you can do dungeons, and you just do the dungeons to get the gear or make legendaries. So really it's PvP, because the game is PvP focused. While in WoW you have got your PvP, you can go and do the tournament, and you've also got raiding, and raiding is huge in WoW, and Guild Wars 2 doesn't have that, simply because it isn't, a PvE focused game. And, that's good for them, that's what they've chosen, but I think if you went with the raiding as well, at least players have more to do, instead of feeling like they have to go do PvP. I mean, they can explore the world, but there's not all that, once you've done that, what are you left with? So in terms of endgame, I'd have to say WoW has definitely, got more there, and I like that, but WoW has had a lot longer to kind of develop that. WoW has been out for what, like 8 or 9 years now. That's a lot, that's quite a long time. That's a lot of time to fine tune, see what the people want and pick it all out, make it just right. And sometimes completely fuck it up, but they still have, they can change it, they can make it right, they can fix it all. And Guild Wars 2 just needs to it needs more time to do that. That's all it needs. And very finally, PvP and dungeons. Very straightforward for dungeons. WoW has a ton of them. So many dungeons, and I love dungeons. I played a tank. I could grind dungeons all day. They were just so fun, and they were really, they ranged in difficulties, but in the end they all got quite easy. Guild Wars 2, I seem to find that all the dungeons are quite difficult. When I first went into them, I died I don't know how many times. There was just a lot going on, and not really confusing, a lot of damage going out. And as you don't have the, you don't have you don't have a guy who, hey, he's healer, these are DPS, and that's a tank. It's, yeah, this guy's kind of stacking, he's got a shield and stuff, so he can be tank. All kind of manage your own healing as well as you can. We'll throw down healing spells to the group when we can, but that's basically it. And everybody's a DPS, and we all just smash the hell out of it. And that kind of structure is quite sloppy, but it seems to do okay right now. It could really be improved. My favourite thing about WoW Dungeons is the Dungeon Finder. That Guild Wars 2 needs that as soon as possible, please. I love Dungeon Finder. It's just really easy to get it all done. Figure out. It helps you get your groups really quick, and that's what people want. You don't want to be waiting around by the entrance of a dungeon for ages, because it takes too long, and people don't really need that hassle. In terms of PvP, as it's a PvP focused game, of course they have quite a lot of stuff available. They've got World v World, there's actual battlegrounds, and they're very different, but both have, good and bad things about them. I'm not going to go into them too much detail because there's a lot of different things, but World v World is a huge map, really fun to play. Then you've got PvP, which the actual battlegrounds I think are a bit too small for my liking, and not enough people. Definitely not enough people, but the detail in the actual battleground is quite a lot, and it's really fun to be in. There's not many other ways I can put it about that, because it is, I can't go into detail without going into like a massive long, almost an hour-long video, and I don't want that. I want to try and keep it a normal size, not too kind of crazy long. About WoW dungeons, like I said, there is a ton of dungeons in WoW, and there's so many different stories in them, and they're made really interesting, and that's just down to having the time to be able to, work the stories, really kind of, there's been a lot of dungeon changes that have happened in Mists of Pandaria. I think it was Mists of Pandaria that it changed, but I remember the stockades in Stormwind, they changed quite drastically. They put Hogger in there. Hogger was better as like a, just, he was better as a world kind of elite, but that's my thought. So they do change it, and they have more. Guild Wars 2 doesn't seem to focus on that. ArenaNet have been like, oh yeah, we have them. They've not really done it needs to be a bit more kind of, there needs to be more and preferably some easier ones, because in WoW you've got dungeons for almost all levels, well basically for all levels. Guild Wars 2, it's really kind of, you have very few. I can't remember how many there are, but there's not many at all, and it just kind of leaves you stranded. It's very classic WoW, as in like you got to get there yourself, your group's got to get there, and it's, yeah, Dungeon Finder, that will solve a lot of problems, and more dungeons. It sounds simple, and it really is to solve probably, but getting the content right is probably a bit harder. And WoW PvP. WoW PvP is not really looked on a whole lot, but I think WoW PvP is really fun. There's definitely a lot of different kind of maps. You've got, capture the flag, you've got domination, the weird minecart one, which I don't know how it works. I played it once and died horribly bad. And you've got a lot of different size maps, and as well they've also got stuff like what's it called? They have those world ones where you could just run into. They have the one in Cataclysm, and they had Barren Hold, basically like Barren Hold. Those are really fun because it's kind of like World v World, except from it's just on a realm and it's a bit bigger and a bit more intense than an actual battleground. So yeah, WoW has definitely had time to do its PvP. They've gotten a lot of good stuff out, a lot of good maps, and they've got arenas. Arena does have competitive, but they both have that. I've never really gotten into either of them. I did do arena in WoW and I enjoy that, but both could probably be improved. I don't really have much to say on the Guild Wars 2 arena because I've never really done it, but WoW 1 is definitely done right. I really enjoy that one. So that's really it. They're the main points I want to talk about, really. There's probably some other stuff I could do, but that would just make the video last so drastically long, and I've already had to record this a second time because it took too long the first time. So, if you guys want to put your honest opinions about, put your honest opinions in the comments below. Tell me what you think. If you've played both, give me your thoughts. If you've maybe only played one, tell me what you really hate or really like about it. What keeps you playing that game. Probably my major favourite thing about Guild Wars 2 is that there's no subscription. I hated subscriptions because I felt like I was being forced to play the game, and you don't want that. You want to play it at your own leisure. That's all, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, just comment, rate, and subscribe. That's all I can really say. I've got Guild Wars 2 content. If you like Guild Wars 2, and there is no WoW content on my channel because I've kind of stopped playing it, but maybe one day there'll be some more out. Maybe. There is League of Legends coming soon though, so there is still stuff happening. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and goodbye.